you so much for attending the webinar today of the hearing and vision loss among older adults. I would like to welcome our speaker today. Her name is Shaoqing Ge, and she is best known as Dr. G. She is a postdoctoral scholar fellow at the D. Tournier Center for Healthy Aging at the University of Washington. Dr. G received her PhD in nursing from Duke University and her Master of Public Health from Tulane University. She has won multiple research awards and is dedicated to improving cognitive and sensory function among older adults. Thank you so much, Dr. G. We greatly appreciate that you have joined us today, and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Chris.
You are so welcome.
That's a wonderful, wonderful introduction. Okay, I'll get my slides ready. Can you see my slide?
Yes, we certainly can.
Awesome. Let me arrange my Zoom layout so that it's, all right. Okay. Hello, good afternoon. It's my great pleasure today to be here and talk about hearing and vision loss among older adults. I will have a particular focus about hearing and vision loss and cognitive decline and psychosocial factors. Me as a junior researcher, I focus on hearing and vision loss as part of my program of research. Instead of experienced much hearing or vision loss myself, I believe this is a topic very much related to your daily living. So I would like to use this as an opportunity to communicate with you about hearing loss, vision loss. What is it like in your life? Hopefully we will have some time at the end of today's talk that I can hear your voice as well. So an overview of my talk today. I'll firstly provide a brief introduction about the trend of global aging, and then talk a little bit about hearing loss, vision loss, and cognitive decline and cognitive impairment among older adults. Then we will talk about the connections between sensory loss and the cognitive decline, and the connections between sensory loss and the psychosocial factors. So the aging of the world's population is a growing concern. From the year of 2015 to 2050, the number of adults aged 60 and above is projected to double and reach about 2.1 billion, representing more than 17% of the world's population. So this trend also reflects in the United States. The number of older adults aged 65 and above is projected to double between 2012 and 2050, yielding about 84 million older adults in the United States. The aging of the population requires policymakers and researchers, including me, to pay increased attention to the health and well-being of older adults in the nation. A survey has shown that hearing and vision loss to be among the top 10 disabilities among adults aged 18 years and above. So this hearing and vision loss are certainly important health issues among adults in general, not just older adults. So we can take a closer look into hearing loss first. As shown on this graphic here, it's obvious that hearing loss disproportionately affects older adults. As people grow older, the prevalence of hearing loss within each age group obviously increased. And the significance of hearing loss not just reflects in its high prevalence, it's also shown in the correlations between hearing loss and many other health issues. As we can see here, including dementia, depression, cardiovascular disease, or even a potential higher rate of mortality. And and hearing loss is also related to some very common behavioral risk factors like smoking and drinking. And today, in this talk, we'll primarily focus on age-related hearing loss. Age-related hearing loss comes on gradually as people get older. It seems to run in families and may occur because of changes in the inner ear and auditory nerves. Age-related hearing loss usually occurs in both ears, affecting them equally, and the loss is usually gradually set on. So sometimes people may even realize that they are experiencing some level of age-related hearing loss. Many factors can contribute to hearing loss. Age, of course, is the #1 most important risk factor for people to have age-related hearing loss. It can also because of a long-term exposure to sounds that are either too loud or too long. Some chronic conditions are also may serve as risk factors for age-related hearing loss, such as high blood pressure or diabetes. Also, another risk factor are medications that are potentially toxic for our auditory system. So after talking about something about hearing loss, we switch gear and focus on vision loss for a moment. So similarly, vision loss also disproportionately affect older people, and the prevalence of vision loss increase as people age. So also compare adults with vision loss to their normal vision counterparts. We can see that all these various health conditions have a higher prevalence among the group of people with vision loss compared to those with normal vision. So we can observe a potential correlation between vision loss and many health conditions as well. So major types of vision loss among older adults can be categorized into 2 types. First off is the refractive errors, like nearsightedness and farsightedness. These can be corrected by wearing some vision aid. And another major type of vision loss is due to non-refractive errors. These are mostly because of some pathological reasons, like age-related macular degeneration or AMD. That's the most common reason for older adults to experience vision loss. Also, other diseases like cataract, glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy, they are all very common among older adults. Even though I'm not a clinician, I don't usually see patients in the clinics. However, from a researcher perspective, I do try to understand what's the symptoms and how is the vision among these group of patients. So these graphics show examples of what's the vision like among people with these types of disease. So the first graphic shows the vision of patients with age-related macular degeneration. It is a degenerative condition affecting central vision. Reading and crossing roads then may become very difficult. So these group of patients are likely to suffer from potential safety accidents. And the second graphic here shows the vision of the cataract patients. It is usually like a clouding in front of your vision, and then it results in blurry vision and faded colors. And for glaucoma patients, it's usually the length of the patients have a loss of side vision. So they usually have a very tunneled vision instead of a wide spectrum. For diabetic retinopathy is caused, and they are usually see increasing blurred and patchy vision, so they may have some dots in front of their eyes. So before we talk about how sensory loss are connected to cognitive function and cognitive decline, I want to briefly talk about the issue with cognitive decline and dementia among the aged group of people. Cognitive decline and dementia obviously have become a major health and social issue. Cognitive decline is an important human aging experience that differs greatly in extent between individuals. The term cognitive decline reflects a continuum of cognitive changes, which can be within the spectrum of normal aging or exceed the expected decline spectrum and reflect a pathological process. Age-related cognitive decline involves cognitive deterioration in several domains, majorly including memory, executive functions, processing speed, and reasoning. So as now this graphic shows the trajectory of cognitive decline, if an individual's cognitive decline crosses a threshold of objective neurological testing in which the person requires some level of cognitive assistance, then this level of a deterioration is called mild cognitive impairment, or MCI in short. If the cognitive decline steadily progresses to a level that the individual's cognitive decline interferes with daily living activities and have lost the ability to live independently, then the individual would likely to be diagnosed as having dementia. So cognitive decline and dementia among older adults has become a major health and social issue. Implementing strategies to prevent cognitive decline and dementia through reduction of risk factors has been demonstrated to significantly reduce dementia incidences and medical costs. It is widely agreed that more research is still needed to understand the mechanisms of cognitive decline and the factors that contribute to its individual differences. The cognitive decline and the factors that contribute to cognitive decline, we still don't know a whole lot about it, and still more research are still needed. So as part of my research, I focused on understanding if sensory loss, including vision and hearing loss, can serve as potential risk factors for cognitive decline. To understand this aim, we conducted a longitudinal study using data from the Health and Retirement Study, HRS, which is a large-scale national representative data that was started collecting from the year of 1992. And this group of participants were followed up and interviewed every other year. And we also used the data from the aging demographics and memory study, which is called the ADAMS. This is a supplement of the health and retirement study. We used the data collected over an 8-year spectrum, and particularly focusing on understanding the associations between hearing loss and cognitive decline, vision loss and cognitive decline, and dual sensory loss and cognitive decline. And our paper has been accepted for publication on the Journal of the American Geriatric Society. So these graphics show the result from our analysis. Let's focus on the first graphic here on the top left-hand side. So this graph here shows the trajectory of cognitive decline as people age in two different groups, the group with normal hearing and the group with hearing loss. So the y-axis here represents the cognitive score. Higher score represents better cognitive function. And the x-axis here represents people's age. And we can see that as people age, the general trend of cognition is downward. So people, of course, generally experience worsened cognition as they age. So if we focus on the red group here, which represents the group of participants with hearing loss, and the blue group here represents the group of participants without hearing loss, that's normal hearing. So we can see that the group with hearing loss have a faster rate of cognitive decline as they grow older. That's represented by the steeper slope of this red line compared to the blue line, which represents the rate of cognitive decline among the group of people with normal hearing. So move on to the second graphic here. Similarly, the y-axis means cognitive function, and the higher score represents a better cognitive function. And x-axis represents participants' age. And in our participants, they age between 70 years, above 70 years and more than 100 years old. So it's a wide age spectrum. However, among this, in this analysis, we didn't find significant difference in terms of the rate of decline between these two groups. That's the group of participants with vision loss and the group of participants with normal vision. However, we can definitely see that the group with normal vision in general have higher level of cognition compared to the group with vision loss. So even though we didn't find a significant difference in the slope, we still observe worse cognition among the group of participants with vision loss. Focusing on the bottom left-hand side, this graph shows the findings in terms of dual sensory loss. So we represented dual sensory loss by using numbers of sensory losses. So in this chart, the green line is the group with both types of sensory loss, having both hearing and vision loss. And the red line represents the group with only one type of sensory loss. It can either be hearing or vision loss. So we didn't specify which type it is, but overall, one type of loss. And the green line on the top represents the group of participants without any sensory loss. So they are basically sensory intact. So we can tell that the green line, which represents a group with both types of sensory loss, have overall worse level of cognition and a faster rate of cognitive decline. So these findings in summary supports our hypothesis that if older adults have certain type of sensory loss, they are likely to have worse cognitive function or have a faster rate of cognitive decline. So we observed these potential associations between sensory loss and cognitive function. But why? Why does these connection exist? Um, in short, the answer is we still don't know, even though we have accumulating evidence, but still we don't know what's the exact mechanism or what's the exact reason. It could be a very simple reason that older adults with sensory loss can not do as well as those with normal vision or hearing in the cognition tests, right? If they cannot see or hear well, it may very likely to affect their performance during the cognition test. Or it could be reversed, like those with cognitive impairment, they may not be able to understand well during their vision or hearing tests. So this may also reflect as if they have certain level of hearing or vision loss, which they may, in fact, don't have. So beyond that hypothesis, there are other hypothesized mechanisms that may connect sensory impairment and cognitive decline. As shown here in this graphic here, these are all hypothesized mechanisms that may play a role in this relationship. So one possibility is that sensory impairment may increase the cognitive load, or the total amount of demand placed on the brain at any given time. Assuming cognitive capacity is a fixed resource, if people put higher effort on their hearing or vision, this high cognitive load from effortful hearing or vision could impair their performance on cognitive tests. Another hypothesis is that hearing or vision loss can result in a loss of input to the brain. Like, for example, hearing loss can impact the clarity of the sound, thus the information reaching the cortex is degraded and the cortex is deprived of quality sensory information. Over time, this deprivation results in changes in the brain structure and the function of the central auditory systems. And this has been shown in studies of animals and some studies in humans. Some studies found neurological imaging evidence that brain atrophy or brain structural change happens in the brain of individuals with hearing or vision loss, as compared to individuals with normal hearing or vision. Also, reduced hearing or vision among adults can have been shown to result in depression and social isolation, which were both highly correlated with cognitive decline and cognitive impairment. Another possibility, as shown on the bottom here in the yellow box, is that sensory impairment may interfere with physical or cognitively stimulating activities like exercise or reading or walking, and that the lack of activity has a detrimental effect on cognitive function. The red box here on the bottom shows the possibility that the relationship between sensory loss and cognitive impairment is because that they share common risk factors like age, smoking, genetics. All of these reasons can contribute simultaneously to both sensory loss and cognitive decline. So any of these pathways shown here may explain the link between sensory and cognitive impairment. However, as I said, these are still hypothetical reasons. We don't have confirmative evidence to show that any of these play a major role or if it's actually sensory impairment leads to cognitive decline, or it's actually cognitive decline leads to sensory impairment. So more research are still needed. So a recent publication on Lancet has drawn a lot of attention from the research community. This report summarized the attributable fraction of potential modifiable risk factors for dementia through analyzing big data of using like meta-analysis. And we can see these are the risk factors that are likely to play the important roles in people's cognition or dementia status in their later life. And we can see that hearing loss, especially midlife hearing loss, can actually play a pretty important role in determining the cognition in later life. Other risk factors like brain injury, hypertension, smoking, depression, and social isolation, they are all very likely to be the actual risk factors for cognitive decline in later life. So after talking about sensory loss and cognitive decline, I want to briefly talk about psychosocial factors among older adults using loneliness as an exemplar. So we all know that older adults are exposed to potential health and psychological issues. And nowadays, under the epidemic of COVID, many of these issues have been even more important and draws a lot of attention from the clinicians and the researchers. We did a study trying to understand the relationship between sensory loss and loneliness among older adults. And our study found a significant association between both types of sensory loss and an elevated level of loneliness in severity. Older adults with sensory loss are likely to encounter difficulties in communication with families and friends. Therefore, sensory impaired older adults' social relationships can be harmed by issues like miscommunications and misunderstandings. Consequently, older adults with sensory loss may feel negative emotions like frustration, anger, or distress, and tend to passively or even intentionally withdraw from social interactions due to their function and communicational challenges. Then that poses a question: how to cope with hearing and vision loss. So common recommendations are listed here. As researchers, we very often talk about the stigma among people with hearing or vision loss. So don't hide these issues away. Hiding it away doesn't help. Also, it is important, it is helpful to ask the people to show their face while talking to you if you experience certain level of hearing loss. However, that may not work well nowadays during COVID because we always wear face masks. But other strategies here may still help, like ask people to speak more slowly, more clearly, speak louder, but not necessarily shouting at you, and ask people to rephrase and reword and using some body language or facial expressions. You know, even I'm smiling, even though I'm wearing a mask, but you can still see I'm smiling. Quieter places may also help as well. A very often discussed topic now is that how to properly wear masks if you also wear a hearing aid. There are many videos online talking about this issue and showing the tricks that we may perform to wear both hearing aid and masks stably. So this is shown here as an example. I was told that multimedia over Zoom environment may not work well, so I won't show it. I won't play this video here, but if you are interested, you can go online and search on this topic. Many videos showing many different strategies. It may be helpful for you. Okay, so coping with vision loss. As we've talked about, vision loss are usually because of certain pathological reasons. So if you experience any discomfortableness in your eyes, go to see your eye doctor. Also, for almost all those eye conditions, early detection and early treatment are crucial in preventing its progression. Also, vision loss may lead to certain safety issues like falls or difficulty while you're driving. So it may be helpful to do a checkup of your lighting within your house, or the layout of your furniture, so that you can walk safely in and around your house. Yeah, that's almost bring to the end of the talk. Before I end the talk, I want to tell you a little bit about another study that's going on at the Tulane Center of Healthy Aging at University of Washington School of Nursing. We are conducting this interview study focusing on understanding your experience with aging. So each interview is likely to last a little bit, like around 1 hour or a little bit longer than 1 hour. For the safety measures, we do all the interviews online, so you can participate in our study using Zoom or other online communication tools. We have a pretty simple eligibility criteria. As long as you're aged more than 65 years and above, routinely perform your daily activities independently. If you can speak and understand English and have access to internet or for remote participation. So basically, we'll ask you a bunch of questions regarding your experience of getting old. Yeah, so it's totally minimal risk, and we're focusing on understanding your experience. So if you are interested in this study, feel free to reach out to us. I believe you would be shared with the slide deck after the talk, so you will have my contact information handy. Also, this study is related to engaging with aging, which is a concept built by a retired faculty emerita, Doris Carnevale from the School of Nursing. And she is 97 years old, and she has so many feelings over her own course of getting older. She has this blog. It might be of your interest. This blog has like readers from, I believe, more than 20 countries all over the world. You may find some of the content relatable to yourself. So just something for your reference. That brings to the end of the talk. Thank you very much for your attention.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Dr. G, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for that valuable information and that great webinar. Everyone, thank you again for attending. I will email all of you with Dr. G's contact information, along with the information on how to volunteer for her study. And we will also include a survey sheet that we'd love for you to fill out and tell us what you thought of the webinar today. Everyone, I want to give you a chance to ask a question. So please feel free to write your question in the chat, or if you feel comfortable, unmute yourself and ask the question using your voice. We'll give you a few minutes. While people are formatting their questions, Dr. G, thank you again for that. That was very enlightening, and I found it interesting how many of our age-related wellness issues are tied to our vision and our hearing loss. I didn't realize that, but it makes sense also as I was recalling my grandparents and people that I have worked with here at Culver House, Ravenna. So thank you. That was very valuable information. Does anyone have a question for Dr. G? All right. If you think of your question later, oh, go ahead.
Hi, Chris. Terry Butler here.
Hi, Terry.
Say, this might be obvious or it might have already been covered, but I would still ask Dr. G if I understand that there are associations identified between these various other factors and chronic illnesses and the either vision loss or hearing loss. Would it follow then that if a person is dedicated to trying to decrease or diminish or minimize those other factors like depression or some of the other aspects, staying in contact with people. I'm thinking about things that our behavior could actually affect. My question is it possible then, or can we infer that attention to those factors might then decrease the likelihood of the diminishment of cognitive abilities?
Great question.
Sorry, I used a lot of words there, but I hope that makes sense.
No, that was a great question, Terry. Dr. G, will you please unmute yourself and address what Terry asked?
Yeah, thank you very much, Terry, for the great question. Actually, you asked a very good question, and I believe many researchers around the world are trying to solve this question. As I said, most of these evidence are from observed studies. There are not many intervention studies are going on nowadays to try to intervene on these potential risk factors or behavioral factors. Like I think I know there is one study nowadays trying to help people with hearing loss to see if they wear proper hearing aids or if they get proper treatment on their hearing, would that help with future cognition? And this study is currently going on. We don't have findings from it yet. For many other factors, there are not many interventions going on, or there are some interventions, but the findings might not be so confirmative that we are confident to say that, you know, working on this point will definitely contribute to your cognition. I would say the evidence from observational studies still help with our understanding on how we can pay attention to our behaviors and how we can better preserve our health to promote overall health conditions in our later life. Another value of those evidence from observational studies is to inspire researchers to start conducting those intervention studies. So hopefully in the near future, we'll have confirmative evidence on a certain approach would definitely contribute to cognition in the future. It is a long trajectory of gaining those knowledge. Nowadays, you know, and National Institute of Health found many studies for researchers try to collect those evidence. So yeah, hopefully like in 5 years, we'll have a great answer to your question. I hope that helps.
Yes, very much. Thank you. And I hope it is 5 years because I'll still be around.
Right on, Terry. That's great.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
I have worked with persons with cognitive disabilities or people who have cerebral palsy that even, use technology to speak. Anyways, it's just interesting to me that population, sometimes it's assumed that they don't have a lot of ability. And this one woman I know who's 80 and she uses a wheelchair and she writes poetry and does art. She's real savvy. Anyways, it's interesting. I'm wondering, in your studies, have you looked at these other populations of people who have some kind of disability already?
If I understand correctly, you asked me if I've worked with people with other disabilities beside hearing, vision, or cognitive issues.
Well, yes. I mean, when you're looking at loss, and aging and loss with vision or hearing, are you looking only at people who are considered healthy to begin with? Who already do not have any cognitive impairment?
Yeah. Well, another very good question. I guess especially as a junior stage researcher, I cannot do all types of research. So for my current work, I focus on healthy aging and by understanding risk factors. So hopefully one day I can contribute to older adults' healthy aging by intervening on these risk factors. For my current stage, I haven't particularly worked with older adults with dementia, or that might be my next risk study, looking at maybe I'll get a grant to support that, working on it.
Great.
I wondered if there were other people, if you've known of other people where I wouldn't say this population has dementia, but they've lived their lives with some cognitive difficulty.
Yeah.
But what's amazing is how well people can function sometimes. And we can learn, I guess I'm thinking too, we can learn a lot from them to use with other folks. Yeah, thank you. It was a very good presentation.
Thank you, Kathy. That's very good. We do have one more question, Dr. G. It says, and it's from Winita. Thank you, Winita. It says, in several of the graphs, age 75 seems to be a data point or a marker for the decline in vision and hearing. Is this age or is this data point true for other sensory loss? Is that the age where we're starting to see the sensory loss?
I believe sensory loss is a gradual process. It can start even in the middle age. But we did observe a much higher prevalence of sensory loss among the group of 70 and above. So it is pretty obvious increase in that age group. Regarding other types of sensory loss, my current work, I didn't touch upon those, like tactic senses or other senses. There are 5 senses, right? But I primarily focusing on hearing and vision at this stage. So yeah, I would like to know more about other types of sensory loss too, and get to know more about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It sounds like, though, Dr. G, that a lot of the studies are studying people who are 75 years and older. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Juanita also just makes an observation, and she says that she's noticed that single person households continue to rise, especially with seniors, which is deepening the potential loneliness that can contribute towards sensory loss and cognitive decline.
Yeah, it can be related. Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you for sharing. Like loneliness and social isolation, living like because of living alone, or even nowadays COVID, it's definitely becoming a more and more important issue for both clinicians and researchers to pay attention to. Um, yeah, so that's a very good point. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, thank you, Anita. Is there anyone else who has a question for Dr. G? All right. Dr. G, thank you so much for your time today. And later this afternoon, everyone, I will be sending you the contact information for Dr. G and how to access the study and the blog that she talked about. And thank you again for trusting us with your time to educate you and provide some entertaining, interesting information, everyone. Have a great day and walk. Go outside and walk.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care,
Thank you.
everyone. Bye-bye.